Midnight Moon. Written by Suzana Thompson. Narrated by Sarah Sampino. Chapter 26. She wreaked havoc during her short life, and her death was no different. Everybody was distraught by the inexplicable nature of her unexpectedly abrupt end. She had superior strength and healing ability, so she should have lived much longer than a normal wolf. We went over everything numerous times, trying to solve the mystery of her sudden demise. She had appeared to adapt to her new existence quickly, and she had not only assimilated into a wolf pack, but also became a dominant member after killing the alpha's mate. "Sounds like Kristen," I remarked dryly.
"I guess that's her nature," Bryce replied. "I mean, it was. But she didn't have any memory of her human life, or she would have tried to kill us otherwise. She definitely would have hated us for what we did to her."
Bryce and his family had kept an eye on her to make sure that she wasn't a danger to humans. Her life in the wild seemed to be her only interest, which was normal wolf behavior. They thought that their solution for their rogue werewolf had worked splendidly. I was shocked to learn that she had become the alpha's new mate. I thought wolves mated for life.
"That's a common misconception, but it's not true," Bryce explained. "The survival of the wolf pack depends on the natural instinct to mate. He'll choose another healthy female if something happens to the first one."
"Will her babies be werewolves?" Taylor worried.
"No," Bryce answered to our relief. "They're normal wolf cubs, just bigger and stronger, and they'll probably have a longer life expectancy than usual."
The pregnancy hadn't killed her, and she'd already weaned her 4 cubs. "Maybe her body couldn't handle being a wolf all the time," I suggested. "Isn't that why you change back into humans after the full moon?" "We change back because the moon is no longer exerting its influence on us," Bryce's mom said, reminding me that we were on a conference call. "The pull of the moon is irresistible to us, except during pregnancy. The survival of the race takes precedence in all species. However, since she had permanently become a wolf—"
"Was she pregnant?"
Taylor interjected. "Do you think she had an abortion?" "What are you talking about?" Bryce's mom asked impatiently, probably annoyed at being interrupted. "When she used my phone to get Clarissa out to Mapleside. Remember we thought she was working with someone else? She could have been pregnant." "Oh, but wait, she did change into the wolf." "Forget that," Taylor urged, sounding embarrassed.
"That's right,"
Damien explained.
"She texted Clarissa after dark. We never did find out how she did that."
"Start from the beginning," Bryce's mom commanded. "Tell me exactly what happened." She listened as we related the story we had nearly forgotten after we found out that Kristen was the killer wolf. We'd originally thought that a human was controlling the wolf, because the text had been sent after dark on the night of a full moon. As Damien had remarked, wolves couldn't use phones. "I'm going to look into this," Bryce's mom said, before ending the phone call. All of us were in different states, except Bryce and his mom. Taylor was in New York, but she still kept in touch with Bryce sporadically. Damien was in Alaska, and I was in Ohio. He called me back to talk privately after the abrupt end of the conference call. "How do you think she did it?" I asked.
"I don't know," he said, "but it might have something to do with why she died so soon."
I decided to wait on the answer to the mystery of Kristen's death before telling him what I had decided. My plans had already been set in motion, but nobody knew about them yet. "Have you told him?" Daphne questioned when I called to tell her about the conference call. "Who?" I inquired. "And told him what?" "Damien," she replied. "Have you told him you're moving to Alaska?" "How did you know that?" I asked in stunned surprise. "Because you were telling our kids about the Northern Lights," she said in a tremulous voice. I was more concerned by the realization that she was crying than by the words she had spoken. "What's wrong? Why are you crying?" "I had the most beautiful dream," she told me emotionally. "We were all there. You, me, Damien, Jeremy, and our kids. We were standing outside looking at the sky, and you were talking about the northern lights. Then we saw them, and it was so— You saw your kids? I cut in excitedly. And yours. You had— No! I cut her off again in a panic. Don't tell me. I know. She agreed in understanding. It's overwhelming. It could be just a dream, I ventured. Not every dream is a premonition. But you've decided to move to Alaska, she countered. Yes, I admitted. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you'll have kids with Damien, she finished dubiously after I trailed off. Have you had any dreams about him? Yes, I replied. Wolf dreams. That means— Yes, I answered her unspoken question. I want to share everything with him. She was silent for a moment. I'm going to tell Jeremy. I knew she meant that she was going to tell him about herself, the fact that she was a werewolf. He'd finally asked her out, but she'd panicked after he tried to kiss her on their second date. Jeremy had apologized and told her that he would leave it up to her to make the first move when she was ready. Their dates had been platonic since then, but Daphne wanted more than friendship. I've been so afraid of losing him, but I know he's not going to wait forever. I need to just tell him, because we can't be together anyway until he knows. He might not even believe me. He might think I'm crazy. You can prove it to him, I reminded her. Yeah, she said softly. And then he might think I'm a monster. Nobody could ever think you're a monster, I assured her. She had been the only one of us to attend Kristen's funeral. Bryce had insisted on burying her in their yard and placing a stone marker on her grave. His mom had balked at having it engraved with Kristen's name, even though anyone who looked would only find the body of a wolf. So it was left without an inscription, and Bryce and Daphne were the only ones who stood solemnly at her grave in memory of Kristen. Daphne said it helped lessen her grief a little when she got to play with Kristen's wolf cubs. Bryce said that wolves will let us get so close up to them because they recognize us as kin, even in our human form. That dream I had last night made me think it might work out okay with me and Jeremy, she told me now. And with you and Damien. I hope so, I said. When are you going to tell him? She prompted. After we find out what happened to Kristen. When are you going to tell Jeremy? I asked. Tonight, she answered. Before I chicken out again. Call me, I urged her, no matter how late it is. I got the call about Kristen first.
It was a spell, Bryce informed me. She used a spell to suppress the change. Very dangerous and unpredictable. That's how she was able to text you during the full moon. She must have thought she succeeded without any harm to herself, but it took a toll on her body. Mom thinks that's what killed her. Wasn't the spell your people used on her the same thing in reverse? I questioned. It kept her from changing back into a human. Wasn't that just as dangerous? I asked Mom the same thing, he confided. She said it's not dangerous because our wolf side is stronger than the human part. It takes a lot more energy to suppress the wolf when the moon is exerting its influence on us. Oh, I said, pondering the significance of that information. They all seemed more wolf than human to me. Maybe the wolf part of him was why Damien had suddenly developed the urge to move to Alaska, though. I have to tell Daphne not to mess with any spells like that, he stated quickly. Can you call Damien? And Taylor? Sure, I agreed, thinking that it probably wasn't always easy for him to talk to Taylor since their breakup. I called her first, because I had more to talk about with Damien. It was just too bad that I couldn't tell him in person. She ruined her human life and her wolf life too, Taylor remarked, after I explained what had happened with Kristen. She really did, I noted in agreement. So Bryce doesn't want to talk to me. I wasn't sure from her inflection if that was a question. He doesn't? Taylor sighed. I mentioned that I was going on a date with someone, and our conversation got all awkward. I shouldn't have to hide that kind of stuff from him if we're friends.
It's not a real friendship if I have to watch what I say. Maybe you can't really be friends with someone you've dated, I said. He probably still has feelings for you. I guess, she acknowledged. But we broke up more than a year ago. How long does he expect me to wait before I start dating again? I sympathized with Bryce, because I knew how hard it would be for me if Damien was dating someone else. I don't know, but tell me about this guy you're going out with. After I got off the phone with her, I sat for a moment contemplating our different perspectives on our love lives. Taylor had broken up with Bryce only because he was a werewolf. They would probably still be together if he had been a normal guy like the one she had met in New York. Yet, would this guy turn out to be as great of a boyfriend as Bryce had been? Only time would answer that question. I fleetingly thought about Daphne and wondered how her situation with Jeremy would turn out. Did her dream really mean anything? Then I called Damien and repeated Bryce's explanation about why Kristen had died so soon.
Maybe,
he said.
Or maybe it was karma for the people she killed.
I wasn't sure if karma applied in her case, since she had no longer been aware of what she had done before she was a wolf. Damien's lingering hatred of her brought up another question in my mind. Do you miss Blair?
We wouldn't still be together, if that's what you're asking,
he told me.
The end of high school would have been the end of us, too. I didn't love her, and she only loved herself.
He laughed shortly.
That was harsh, but it should have been the way I remembered her. She should have been an old high school girlfriend, a faded memory down the road. But now I'll never forget her because I saw her get murdered right in front of me. I don't miss her, but I feel bad for her.
I'm glad you do, I told him. I'm glad you care, and I don't think I'd like you as much if you didn't. I feel bad for her too. She should have graduated with us and gotten a chance to live her life.
Well, this is a depressing conversation. Do you have any more good news?
He joked. Only that I'm transferring to Alaska Pacific University next semester, I said. There was a tense pause, or maybe that was just his tone of voice when he responded.
Say that again?
I will, I promised. If I'm still alive after I tell my dad.
Clarissa,
he said, his voice stretched tight. What? I asked. Don't you want me to come? After another pause, he laughed wickedly.
You can ask me that question again when you get here.
Pervert, I admonished him laughingly. I decided to leave the rest of my surprise for later, after I joined him in Alaska.